Welcome to the Gamification Quest podcast, brought to you by Sententia Gamification. I'm your host, Monica Cornetti, and here we dive deep into the transformative world of gamification. From our origins in 2014 as Gamification Talk Radio until now, our quest remains the same: to put an end to dry, dull, and ineffective corporate training and adult education. Because your learners deserve better. Are you ready? Let's get questing. Hello, my name is Monica Cornetti, and welcome to the Gamification Quest podcast. Today, I have a friend and colleague with me who you're going to absolutely enjoy so much. His name is Artrell Williams. He's currently based in the Buffalo, New York area. And Artrell, I can't even imagine how I know where we met, but maybe you'll remember that. It feels like we've been friends for a very long time, but that's the way Artrell is. He's hugely personable. He teaches soft skills, and he has these soft skills himself. So you know that it works because he is a professional speaker. He does leadership development. He's hugely involved in not-for-profits in his area of the country and helping them to serve his local community. And what we're going to talk about today is a card game, an analog game that Artrell developed for his company to help bring people into the culture of the organization. And specifically, sometimes when you go into a manufacturing or any kind of company, people know their individual job, but they don't know how what they do impacts the rest of the organization. And so that's what Artrell wanted to do with this card game, was to bring that awareness of every individual role, that they're not just whatever that role is, but that it ties together for what the entire company is doing and what their objectives are. So Artrell, thank you so much for joining me. I've been wanting to do this since GamiCon, since you won your award, which was great. So welcome. Tell me the name of the game. Say it for me correctly, because I can't.
The name of the game is Taiyazukuri.
Taiyazukuri. And so it's a tire manufacturing card game. And just a little aside, we had the throwdown competition at GamiCon in New Orleans. And so the people who were finalists, they had already submitted their projects and the judges had their evaluation of it, but they also got to see a presentation. And then the participants at GamiCon also get to play the game if it's something that's game-based like Artrell had. So what I liked so much was that people were standing there playing this tire manufacturing card game, laughing and having a great time doing it. And I was like, that is just a testament to a great game. And in fact, Artrell received the low-tech or analog People's Choice Award, which is quite the accomplishment, because to win that accolades from your peers, who are sometimes our toughest audience, says a lot about your project. So give me an overview. I know how I understand it, but give me an overview of the game. What does it do?
The purpose of the game is to help people connect those dots, as you mentioned before, in the various manufacturing processes that help us develop tires. So I broke it down into 8 different steps, and that helped me put together a game in which you collect the 8 steps to do what we call build a tire. And similar to some of those games like Spades or Rummy, where you get a book. So what you collect is a book, but we say that's you building a tire. So the object of the game is to build more tires than the other people on your team. But then there are a lot of obstacles that could hold you back along the way, but also some boosts that could push you forward. So it's not one of those games where the outcome is determined once somebody is successful in building a tire. It can change at any time, and that's what helped increase the fun factor there.
Oh, that's really good. All right, so let me take it all the way back. I remember back because you were going through our certifications at Sententia, and I remember our early conversations about it. So there was, I don't know if there was one incident in particular, but as you think about what was the inspiration for the game, where'd that idea originally come from?
Well, in order for you to go back and help me go back, I've got to go even further because as you
Okay.
guys taught us about the elements of games, the mechanics that go into it, what actually makes a game, I wanted to do the most fabulous digital game that anybody had ever seen, right? How I had in my mind this grandiose idea that people would play on the computer. But what
Yeah.
we find is that a lot of times we don't have the resources and really the knowledge in order to create such a game. And we got close to the deadline, and I was really racking my brain as to how I could make this fantastic game come together. And it just so happened that I sat down with my kids at the dinner table one weekend. I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old in the home, and we decided to play the game Trouble. So you got a board game here, and you move around the board. And I started thinking about all the things that you guys had taught us about what would make a game like that interesting and fun. And I said, you know what? Why don't you use some of this? Why don't you incorporate those elements that you've learned about through the process, but instead of doing this grandiose digital game, take it to the analog portion, do a board game or a card game. And I settled on a card game, came back to work, ran it by my team. They started giving me great ideas, and then it just all started to come together. So similar to the brainstorming processes that you guys take us through as we're doing our certifications, I did that same type of thing with my team, and the ideas just started to flow. And I'm glad I stepped outside of the bubble on that because those other ideas were what helped me pull it all together.
Yeah, when you think about, I am a like low tech maverick for a lot of reasons. I just love the idea, and everything's the opposite of that now, right? Like, so we've got artificial intelligence, we've got to go digital, we've got to scale, you've got an international company that you work for. So everything's screaming at us, it's got to be digital. And there are a lot of barriers to entry to that. There's time, there's cost, there's the actual development tool. What are you going to use? Are you going to actually design a game like in Unity, or are you going to use a standard authoring tool, and what's the platform it's going to run on, and how will people access it? And a lot of times in manufacturing settings, our employees are working on their particular machines or in their, but there doesn't mean they have access to a laptop where they can go take training digitally, or even would know how to, I'm not saying anything specific, but not know how to use that particular program or whatever it might be. There's all these barriers. Everybody understands a card game. Everybody understands, oh, it's a board game. Oh, it's cards. All right. What are the rules, right? How do you play? That's exactly how do you play? And right away, we can start spelling it out to them. So I love that you went that direction. And as you think about the challenges that you had, did you have to sell this idea at work? Was that something that, like, did people think, Artrell, really? A card game for this? Or were you given pretty much free reign to go create? How did that work?
I had free reign to go create, but it was on my own behalf, not for the company. Nobody ever said, all right, Artrell, go do what you got to do. But for many of the reasons that you just described, I wanted to make sure that what we created catered to our audience. And so when we think about the fact that a lot of the individuals who work here haven't necessarily used computers a lot. They don't have to use computers in their jobs. So for me to create a computer game, it probably wouldn't have been very popular in this environment anyway.
Right.
I
Yeah.
I work closely with the new hires, and I really do have free reign over what happens when they're down here in my orientation. So I said, I'll roll it out to those individuals, and we'll have them play it while they're here in the classroom for that first week of employment here. And that's really how we were able to pull it together because they were my beta testers. They helped me understand what was great about it and what things needed to change. And if it weren't for me being able to use that group as a test group, then I wouldn't have been able to, I would not have as quickly added all of the elements that I needed to get it where it got.
That's so good to have that, the actual target audience, right? So this is who we're designing for. It's the onboarding of new employees. And what a great time in their journey with the company to get an understanding from the beginning that their role, whatever that is, they're going to become masterful at, play is one part of a bigger picture, and everyone's role is important in that. And as part of the onboarding process, I think it's just brilliant. So when you think about that, we have a little mantra here at Sententia that I don't know that it's scientifically proven, but my belief is that you'll learn more in 10 minutes of putting your game, your idea into play testers' hands than you would 10 hours just pouring it over, on my own. So do you remember any of the feedback that you got from your initial play test?
Absolutely. We learned things like the card size and how the players felt about that. We learned about the direction of play, um, how many cards needed to be in a deck, whether we needed to use a face up deck and a face down deck, like those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we ended up at the last minute incorporating a die as well. And so as I think about all of the things that you guys showed us with the game elements, we wanted to make sure that some elements of chance were there, and the die gives us the ability to kind of play with that. We manipulated uh, the outcomes in different scenarios. And so the little die there, I can actually change that throughout the game. If I want there to be a 30% chance of an outcome, then I can say one of these two options. If you get a 1 or a 6, then here's what happens. Or if I want it to be 50-50, then I can say 1 through 3 is something and 4 through 6 is something. So it gave us a lot of flexibility in outcomes as well to use a die. And we customized it so people are intrigued by the little images that are on there. They've had a really good time with it, and it set the tone for their experience here at this organization.
Yeah, it's so good. And well, that's another reason why I love the analog is that there is, I mean, you could call it iteration, but it's also you have the flexibility and facilitation. So depending on what is going on in the room in this training, like how do I need to adjust this to make sure we have the best outcomes, which you is impossible to do with an e-learning program. Maybe, okay, I shouldn't say impossible. Nothing's impossible. So we could through algorithms take people down different paths, but not with the level of cooperation and collaboration and competition that has to happen in the setting that you were doing live. So uh, when you think about, like, I love the game Trouble, and I can't believe that I have not ordered that game yet to play with my grands, and I have got to go get it before I see them over the Thanksgiving weekend because it's a good game. Are we still doing the dice inside the little bubble thing? Are you still, does
You got
the,
that.
it pops in the, that's so much fun. That
It
is, I
is.
think that's so much fun. I love it. I love it. All right. So when you think about the elements of like the chants, the cards, there aren't words on the cards, are there?
There
There's just,
are.
are there? I was trying to think if there were just symbols or if there were words.
We've got words which we
Okay,
had to consider with the card size, because if the cards were too small, then you couldn't get all of the information out, but too large was uncomfortable for the hands. So
right.
we had to manipulate that a bit, but the cards do have words on them as well as images.
Yeah, I knew they had the images. Are they, is it all, and this is a total ignorance question on my part. I envision in my head a room full of students who are onboarding new employees. I see all men. Is that accurate, or do you have females in your mix too?
If I had to assign a number, maybe 15% female.
All right. Because the cards are a little bit larger, but I like them because it's easy to see, easy to manipulate then. They're really fun. So what does it feel like to be recognized for an award? So the award gets recognition from Training Magazine. I just stumbled upon the online edition this morning where our winners are all featured in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. And it's just so delightful to see our winners get that recognition, because we all have seen far too much boring and ineffective corporate training. And that's who we work with, right? We work with at Sententia. That's what our goal is, to work with organizations who are tired of their training not having the outcomes that they needed to have, having like little to, if any, effect on their outcomes. We work with corporate trainers like yourself who are observing, hey, we need to do something different here. It's not that there's something wrong, but we could get better outcomes if we could make some adjustments here. And so you design this game, and then you get recognized by your peers. And we've never had a specific people's choice before. That was something the judges are passing secret notes out of their locked room to me. Can we give a people's choice award? And I'm like, I think we can, right? Let's do it. It's never happened before. So it was that strong, the impression that you made. So what does that feel like?
It feels great because you don't really know when you're designing something like that if people are going to care. We want to design things that people will play, and the best outcome is sometimes that it was better than the other thing they would have done. I think sometimes when we design certain learning activities, all we really hope that they say is, I'm glad it wasn't a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
So to put something out there that I knew it was fun to me, but then the validation of knowing that the players, not only did they believe it was fun, but they took something away from it. And at the conference, I had people say, you know what? I knew nothing about tire manufacturing, and now I have a better understanding. They think that to make tires, you just pour some goo into a mold and
right.
you hear it
Just,
ding like
yeah.
a microwave.
Yeah, microwave it, big
Right.
microwave machine. Yeah. Well, I don't know that I would think microwave, because you got to have the tires, the steel treads in there, right? So yeah, but I see an easy bake oven. I do see that in my mind, right? Yeah, that's how it's made. So but that's not how it's done. No, not.
Not at all. Right. And that was the gap that I wanted to fill, because even though we bring people in and we show them that there are these processes, when we send them to work, we put them in one place in the value stream and we say, this is it, you stay here, and you don't really have to worry about what happens to the materials after they leave you, and you don't necessarily care where the materials came from. And I
Right.
know that that breaks down communication. So I wanted to make sure that I facilitated some communication by allowing people to understand how the rubber that we make turns into the components that they use to go to the tires that end up on their vehicles. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback, even from people who are here working directly with the processes, that say, now I at least know that I can communicate with someone in this area. Or if I hear someone in the break room, for example, say that they work in this department, now I have a better understanding of what that means and what they do in that department.
Yeah, I think it also it breaks down. I hate to use the old term silos, but it breaks down this is what I do over here, and over there it's not really involved with that. Doesn't involve me, but it breaks, so it does create that more, even if we're not actively collaborating on a regular basis, it does create that more, we are all in this together. We're all important, everyone's role. I want to ask you about what you think you'll do next, but I do want to think about somebody who's thinking, well, I want to do something like that. I do onboarding and no one seems to understand the whole process. So if somebody was wanting to create something like you've created, what advice would you give them? I mean, I like that you were playing trouble and you get the aha moment. I love that. What
Right.
what would you think? Somebody says, I want to do that.
I really believe that they should study it some, similar to
Yeah.
the way that I did. So you can go your own and play a game that you may be familiar with and try to understand what about that game makes it fun. But it really wasn't until I went through Sententia's program that I realized that there's a lot of thought that goes into putting this type of thing together. It's not like somebody just grabbed some rocks one day and said, hey, let's throw it down here, and you put some rules around it, and now you got a game. And in some instances, that could be the case, but when we're designing learning activities, then there has to be some intent. And as you guys taught us about understanding the business objectives and then using those business objectives to develop the learning objectives. So the intent of the game is not for them to just have fun, but to be able to create an experience that people are going to take away information that helps make them better at their jobs and better within their industry.
Yeah, that's so good. Because what I, again, love about your game is that it is fun. I'll go back to, I experienced live in the room people playing a game who don't have anything to do with tire manufacturing, who are laughing and having fun playing the game. So that's fun. But then it also has this objective, which we always start with, like, what's your objective, not your learning outcomes? How is this going to benefit the business? Why would the business care? And then who are you designing this for? So that's where we always start. And I love that you're playing the game Trouble and developed a card game, because I think that's a unique component also, is that if we only play one type of game, any game we would try to design will have to look like that game. So like if I only play Monopoly, my game that I design is going to have to look something like Monopoly, because that's the only reference I have. That's my frame of reference. I love that you're, pulling from other games and you create a book. And I smiled when you said that, because I have grandsons, which everybody knows because I talk about them all the time, because we're always playing games. But the first time we ever played a game that had a book, they kept getting that mixed up, and they're like, I have a story to tell. I have because they knew it was, but book, they couldn't remember book. And what does that even mean? I've got a story. I have to say something. And we'd be looking, oh, you mean you have a book? You got a book. Okay. So I love that you can draw ideas from anything. And when you have that desire to create something that's fun and engaging and does have successful outcomes, that it is that law of attraction. You start getting ideas from the places you would have never imagined you would have gotten those ideas.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you throw them all in there and realize that you can't have them all.
I know. I know, darn it. Right? Yes. And that is one of the things, is that you realize, what are we doing? Okay, we lost sight of why we were doing this, right? Like, so the game's fun, but we got off track of why we were even developing it in the first place. Yeah. Sometimes the extra game elements, components, mechanics just make it real clunky and don't move us forward. Yeah, that's really good. I like it. All right.
Yeah.
So what are your plans? Are you expanding the game, or I mean, it's good as it is. Do you think there's another iteration to do with it, or what are your thoughts?
I don't know if we're going to do anything else with this particular game, but now I've got my sights set on other analog games. I know that a board game could be just as effective. I've had some interest in the card game, and other people from other businesses have asked, how can we do this with our business? And I believe it can be done. I know it can be done using the same template and format across various industries. And I'm definitely open to help others do that too. But as far as card games go, I'm happy with where this one is.
Yeah.
And now I'm content making games that aren't the most expensive in the digital experience that we saw some of the others create at the Throwdown. Some of those other games were amazing, but I know that I'm limited with the resources. And I also know that I'm still trying to help my business understand that games can be effective in our learning environment. So there's still the selling of that's taking place. And I'm just adding followers one at a time.
Right. Yeah.
Those people that are interested in playing here, because some of the people who've been with the company for 30 years, for example, kind of could care less because they're not used to having fun. And I can't erase 30 years of monotony from somebody. But when they see other people having fun and then realizing that that fun that they're having is helping them learn, not holding them back from learning. And that's what a lot of leaders think, is that whenever we
Mm,
see our employees over there having a good time, they must not be productive. And I want to
right.
show them that they can be productive at the same time and walk away with a lot more information than they would have if we had just put them in a classroom and let them watch us go through a presentation.
Yeah. I'm thinking now, and I don't have, and my little joke is I don't necessarily have answers. I only have questions, but I'm thinking now, how great would it be to develop safety? Like, I know that there must be huge safety issues in a manufacturing plant such as yours. So how could we develop a board game, let's say, that not only allows people to understand the consequences of a wrong choice, and that wrong choice could have just been a slow choice. It could have been I did this instead of that. I got I wasn't as focused as I should be. I mean, there could be a gazillion different reasons those choices are made, but not only the consequence of it, but what kind of impact could it have if you could develop its own language? And by that I mean, like, um let's just say, for example, so here's a tube of lipstick. So in Alfred Hitchcock films, he always had like a MacGuffin, right? So everything was about this item, this tube of lipstick. So you say, well, that's a lipstick event, right? So what if that safety program could develop some kind of its own language that people instantly know? If I say that's a lipstick event or that's a lipstick decision, that's one that is going to have a negative consequence. I don't think I'd use lipstick in your setting, but the idea, I think, would be, because what happens is leadership oftentimes falls into that faulty thinking that we're serious people, we're doing serious work, and nobody should be having any fun while doing it. And when we say fun, we're not saying mess around, joke around, don't take your job to the level of intensity that it should be. But also, we know that when we have a fear brain, especially in a learning environment, no learning can happen. So how can we get people relaxed into understanding that this action would cause a failure, which creates this outcome? And I did that in the game, so I don't have to do it in real life. And I just think that would be so powerful, especially because you've got the audience to play test the ideas with. Yeah.
And safety training is big. It's all
I
manufacturers
imagine.
use it, and many other industries use it too.
I
Um,
mean, I just imagine there's a gazillion things that could go wrong in any given day with just one small error. And I know that there's protocol in place to prevent that from happening. And I know that there's training to prevent that, and there's guidelines and protocols. And in a manufacturing environment, it's just such an important, people have got to understand it, not just sit through a training. That doesn't create anything. Awareness never changes a single behavior. So yeah. How fun. Well, I look forward to your next game. I look forward to that. That's really good. Really, really good.
well, you can rest assured that as it's being developed, you're going to get calls.
I love it. I want to play. I want to play. I was just thinking, doesn't really have like the application of here, play the tire game, because I can't just use that in any industry, but the concept can be used in any industry. The concept of the gameplay can be used in any industry. Yeah, it's really good. Well done, Artrell. Very well done.
I appreciate
So just to close out here, any final thoughts or ideas or anything I'm missing that you'd want to share?
it. I'd like to say to those that are listening, those that are watching, that whatever it is that you find entertaining and fun, you can turn it into an activity that helps people learn something. And I'm really glad that I understood that there's a process involved in making that happen. And when I say anything, when you guys asked us, Monica, about the games that we played growing up, And I thought back to hopscotch, and hopscotch was really fun, and jacks were really fun. And
Yeah.
there are ways, especially having a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old in the house right now, there are ways that I can add learning to their experience as they do those types of things. And I remember some of the learning as I was playing those games as a child. And this morning, I was teaching a class that has a graphic around emotional intelligence, and it's a cycle. And the way people were describing what they took away from the image, I said, you know what? That sounds like jump rope. And you really can jump into that emotional intelligence cycle at the
Yeah.
point that's most relevant to you. And so when you just think about the analogies that we all create when we associate things that we may know with information that we're trying to process, you can take any activity that you enjoy doing and figure out what it is. You guys have had us peel games back, break it all the way down. And when you understand what's in that game, you can attach lessons throughout. And so I encourage anybody that's interested in getting into gamification, if they have questions about how they can do it or what they need to do in order to make their game both fun and educational, go out and do your research. Look at
Yeah.
Sententia, is it SententiaInc.com?
SententiaGamification.com.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Artrell. Also, I want to just say that Artrell is a fabulous speaker. And one of the reasons that he's so great is because, well, first off, he's dedicated to his craft and he doesn't just get up there and wing it, although I believe he could, if he needed to, he could get up there and deliver, but also because he understands the power that humor brings to any kind of situation and learning. And I was listening to a book this morning that was talking about the power of humor in a setting that I wasn't even thinking there should be any humor involved in it at all. But I was like, well, of course you should bring humor into it. It works. So connect with Artrell Williams out on LinkedIn. He's very easy to find. And I know that you would enjoy the connection as much as I have. And I have met so many people because I know Artrell, so that he's a really great connector that way too. So Artrell, thank you so much. And when you were describing that circle with the jump rope, I'm thinking, okay, now we got the double thing going because we got these people I'm trying to manage and leadership needs this. And so now I'm in between the circle of the double jump in emotional intelligence. And it's a really great analogy. And that's why it works so well, why games work so well when we think about adults, because here's this new idea I got to learn. And if I can attach it to something I understand, I can learn it and remember it. So that's just a great image of my head as you're thinking about emotional intelligence. I love it. It's perfect. Very good. Thanks so much, Artrell. I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Well,
Our next
GamiCon
event
is coming sometime soon, right? You got a GamiCon coming next year?
we have our international online version in February. We do have the training conference in Orlando in February. You should come work the booth with us. So yeah, that'd be fun.
I'll be around if
All right.
you haven't
Orlando's always a good place. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, Artrell. We'll see you again soon.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been an episode of the Gamification Quest, brought to you by Sententia Inc. If you enjoyed this presentation, click the thumbs up button below and share your comments. If you'd like to stay in the conversation, click subscribe and ring the bell. You'll be alerted when another episode is released or when we upload an informative video on the gamification of learning. And thanks for all you do to put an end to dull, dry, boring learning experiences.